Now let's start out with the news coverage.
Hello, welcome. This is BBC News. The United States and Iran have exchanged attacks in the Middle East, rattling a fragile ceasefire as an agreement on ending the war continues to elude them. US forces said they'd launched what they called defensive attacks against a military control station
Aren't all American attacks defensive attacks?
in Bandar Abbas, which it says was launching drones and
Is it true that you are a mod in Clavicular's Discord? Yes, it is true. I'm an OG Luxmaxer. I hide my face because it would melt the camera. I have so much plastic surgery.
has shot down 4 aircraft. In retaliation, Iran's Revolutionary Guards said they targeted a US base in the region. They didn't specify where, but air raid sirens have sounded in Kuwait. Iranian media said 4 vessels had earlier tried to pass the Strait of Hormuz without permission from Tehran, causing Iranian forces to fire warning shots. Now, during a cabinet meeting on Wednesday, President Trump said that
We watched this live. It was incredible. You couldn't hear the vice president whatsoever.
Iran is negotiating on fumes, insisting that his war strategy will not be impacted by November's US midterm elections.
Iran is very much intent. They want very much to make a deal. So far, they haven't gotten there. We're not satisfied with it, but we will be. We will be either that or we'll have to just finish the job. It looks like they want to just make a deal. They
Try it, motherfucker.
want to.
I love it when I'm winning and I can finish the job, but I don't finish the job, even though I previously said 10 times that I'm going to wipe them out, but now I'm not wiping them out. With imperialism, when you are losing, you're not losing, you are giving mercy. And when you are winning and you're annihilating the enemy, you're simply doing so, as the Americans in this case, in this completely unprovoked war also said, doing it to minimize future casualties. So at all times, the imperialist is doing everything he can to minimize human suffering while causing human suffering. It's like, apologies for this metaphor, but it's like raping and continuously saying that you're using a condom, so it's not as bad.
They have a choice. They're just going back to the internet because they're getting clobbered. Their economy is in free fall. They have 250% inflation. Their money has no value. Their whole economic system is broken down. They thought they were going to outweight me. We'll outweight him. He's got the midterms. I don't care about the midterms.
Our North America correspondent Peter Bowes gave us this update on the strikes overnight.
What we can say is that this ceasefire is increasingly fragile. Now, certainly from the American side, they're saying that this is not
Fragile. Love how missiles from planes make it fragile. He even couldn't take himself seriously. He was like, "It's fragile."
Update on the
Look at his
strikes
face.
overnight.
What we can say is that this ceasefire is increasingly fragile. Now, certainly from the American side, they're saying that this is not the end of the ceasefire. And just to quote the military statement, that these actions were measured, purely defensive and intended to maintain the ceasefire. But clearly, tensions are rising, and this is the second time in 3 days that we've had similar incidents, and it does raise questions about what happens next. All the time in the background, these talks are supposedly taking place, but we're getting sometimes wildly different accounts of the current state of negotiations.
The Iranians have recently said that they expect Trump to propose a peace deal that, quote unquote, he brokered. They don't give a shit how he's going to pitch it to the American population, but we'll see. Iran continues to have the upper hand. Its upper hand has now removed almost all the negatives, which is, of course, blocking the Strait of Hormuz also damages to an extent the Iranian economy because they cannot export to non-aggressor countries. But quite a few ships are now passing through the American blockade. They'll want to refill because the Americans aren't about to blow up Chinese ships or Indian ships.
And well, we've just heard the president once again saying that essentially if these negotiations come to nothing and that there's no deal,
Ceasefire is still here. Don't worry, bro. Yeah.
we will, he says, have to finish the job. The same kind of language that we've been hearing from President Trump now for several weeks during what has been a relatively successful ceasefire.
Well, let's now speak to our Middle East correspondent Yolande Nell, who's in Jerusalem for us. Yolande, we know negotiations had been taking place between Iran and the US. Where does this leave those?
These fires are deals that are only one way, right? Of course, of course. The genocide is not happening. This is not an apartheid state. This is a ceasefire. He's just crazy, the school shooter, not a Nazi. Your eyes lie to you, you filthy normie NPC subhuman. The weatherman is going to tell you what the weather is outside. Oh, it's raining? You can feel the rain? No, it's not raining. These fucking woke communists keep calling drizzles rain. It's pathetic. It's a special military operation that we make fun of when the Russians call it that. But when Israel calls it that, then it's not funny. Then it's completely correct. You anti-Semitic animal, come here. I want your foreskin. Nom 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 nom. Yeah, the Vietnam War was not the Vietnam War. It was a military operation. It was an intervention because the so-called Viet Cong were not a legitimate government, and you can only go to war against a legitimate government. They were just trying to oust the communist terrorists. Therefore, it was not real war. Turns out that ever since the invention of a fucking TV set, we've never been to war. We've always been to almost wars. Just an excursion, bro. The Vietnamese genocide. No, it's just an excursion, bro. Quick in and out. Show me a quick in and out in the last 50 years, except for Venezuela. God damn it, Venezuela. You're never going to live that one down. Son of a bitch. Holy fucking shit.
Some reports in the Israeli media this morning suggesting that a draft proposal for a memorandum of understanding between the US and Iran has been passed to Israel and to other American allies in the Middle East for them to look at, suggesting that this could be a sign of progress. But what has happened in the Gulf overnight, the second time this week that there has been an escalation there, that really does just underline how shaky things are. And, you know, this has had already an impact on oil prices, pushing them up once again.
Bro, here in Denmark, one of the most prestigious publications is writing articles titled, "Is Putin extending the war in Ukraine to other parts of Europe?" And I gotta say, I'm so fucking tired of the endless scaremongering in Western Europe. Saying Russia is going to in any way, shape, or form extend the war they clearly struggle to even perform. To you guys as media apparatus and most importantly private military industrial sector, it does not actually matter whether Russia will extend its war, whether it intends to, or whether it intends to but cannot, or whether it does not intend to at all. It is a perfect consent manufacturing opportunity for buying, manufacturing, and selling more firearms. Okay? It is a pure economic incentive to always imply that the Russians are rolling through Paris any moment now. So they're going to keep doing it pretty much forever. That train has passed. The rearmament of Europe is already here. You can make an argument that the Russians gave them that the Russians gave them Finland and NATO, etc., etc. You can make the argument that they would have done that anyway, so the Russians did this as a preventive intervention. This is all a discussion that, tribalists like to engage in that I find very, very silly with all your little flags and anthems. But still, yeah, expect to be annoyed for a very long time in the future because they will keep pitching that because more money, literally more money. Also expect to... I don't know what your gender is, my friend, but expect, especially cis men in the country in most European countries, younger ones, if you think about having kids and so on, maybe going through mandatory military service, which is so funny. I remember growing up with the Europeans, Western European, post-socialist Yugoslavia. They kept telling us two very barbaric things we did, which was mandatory military service. They said this is outdated, barbaric, and now they're reintroducing it in Western Europe. And the use of cash. We should all move, fully digitize and use debit cards and so on. Now you'd go to Berlin or fucking Barcelona, every other shop literally says cash only. And they're potentially bringing back the military draft. Not the military draft, but military service. That's not the draft. My favorite thing is Eastern European and Balkan liberals that will now have to defend the very thing they called authoritarian because we self-orientalize and everything that the Western Europeans do is civilized and eloquent and rational. But if we do the same thing, but say da instead of yes or we or see, it's immediately barbaric. Yeah, it's about getting the people to agree to $1 billion investments in firearms. Exactly. And most like the German president, for example, is just literally bought by the military industrial complex. The current president is there to milk it. Is there to milk it. The current president of NATO is the most obvious in your face American spy that you can fucking imagine. They're turning NATO into a more subservient version of the United States, which one could say is impossible to be more subservient. No, it is always possible. Why they increased the military spending necessary, which is literally an additional tax that America is taking from its recent allies and future colonies. Why I keep repeating, any European populist leftist pitch should advocate for an independent, class-conscious Europe. Do the neither East, neither West pitch. I say neither East because imagine pitching Beijing to normies. No, you can't do that. It's not going to fucking sell. Not about logic, this is about politicking, okay? But also pitch anti-Americanism because trust me, the right will pitch it but not act on it and will organize around anti-American sentiments far quicker than we will if we do nothing. Every leftist, I know some do already and good for them, every leftist political organization in Europe should be outwardly anti-American. You can even avoid the anti-NATO pitch because, again, it triggers the normies. Simply focus on anti-American. You can even, I don't care about the titles. You can say, we want a NATO without America. Shit like this. I don't care how you spin it. But as America declines and as the fruits of American imperialism become smaller and smaller, less and less will be shared with the Eurocucks. And the Eurocucks need to decuck themselves before they literally cannot feed themselves. Therefore, the future European politics is anti-American. Not even from a perspective of a socialist or an anti-imperialist like myself, but even if I was a pure, cold-blooded politician that wants to establish myself in European political mainstream, I would start flirting with anti-Americanism on fucking steroids, and it's gonna sell. Nobody fucking likes the Yanks, no matter how much they LARP that they do. That's a popular point in Denmark, especially. Yes, and what you guys' current administration in Denmark, which is just disgusting, like completely disgusting, like and fucking hilarious, like in all the worst ways. Fucking president is, oh my god! Do you remember that TikTok you guys showed me, where she says it's more important to kick out immigrants than talk about the American annexation of Danish territory? I'm scared of Poland. The fuck? Poland it's fucking Poland. It's a factor. Poland is a massive factor. The most you can hope for Poland is some sort of relatively social, liberal, pacifist government. That's what you want. Anything else is fucking dangerous. Everything else is dangerous. What about the communists? Oh yes, the most Red Scare infused country on the planet, Poland, one of the top 5 at least. A country that has seen very significant economic growth from early stage capitalism in which it finds itself in. You are supposed to pitch socialism to. I have a bridge in San Francisco I can sell you if you think you can pitch socialism to modern Poland. Poland has to wait. Poland has to get through the honeymoon of capitalism, okay? Current Polish capitalism is the whole, wow, picket fence, green grass, but with even more housing that the socialists built before, okay? That's the fucking capitalism they're experiencing now. Give them a couple of decades, they're gonna start painting themselves red again because no matter how much they don't want it, red is half the Polish flag. And I know the Polish soul is good. It just needs a little bit of negative inspiration, brothers and sisters. A little bit of negative inspiration. But I like Polish people. Except those 4 cunts that cut in line when I was flying out of Italy, by the way. And I did not give a shit. I literally, like, my partner looks at me and she's like, Did they just do this? And my best friend that's next to me, like, did they just do this? I didn't give a shit. I said, Polish people, and they looked at me like with a side eye, and I looked at them straight in the eye, like, what you gonna do about it? We're gonna fight in an airport. So I couldn't help myself. Because I'm trying to trigger that sort of response in which now they feel like they represent their people, so they're gonna not act out as I did a little bit of racism, but it's progressive racism. I owe nobody nothing. I'm from the Balkans. Fucking eat my fucking dick. I can do whatever I want. The biggest mistake the Soviets made was showing the Polish people how to. Oh my God! You see, that's too hardcore. Like, you see, it's funny, but it's it's funny. Now let's continue with the news.
U.S. Central Command accusing Iran of an egregious ceasefire violation this morning. This is after Iran launched a ballistic missile toward Kuwait. That missile was intercepted by Kuwaiti forces. Kuwait's Ministry of Foreign Affairs called.
I love the name calling. No, you struck me first. No, you struck me first. No, you struck me first.
A dangerous escalation. Now, U.S. officials say this attack came hours after Iran had, as it described, posed a clear threat by launching attack drones near the Strait of Hormuz.
With us now, CNN political and global affairs commentator Sabrina Singh. And as we look at the situation in the Strait, we can see here where the U.S. said it carried out a strike, and then there were also the ballistic missile shot at Kuwait. This doesn't sound like a ceasefire. Even CENTCOM now saying Iran committing a ceasefire violation. What pressure do you think this puts on whatever peace discussions are happening?
Well, this is now the second time in 3 days that we're seeing an exchange of kinetic action between the two sides. Of course, when the United States takes actions in their self-defense, it's considered in self-defense. And when Iran does it, it's considered a breach of the ceasefire. But no matter how you cut it, this is putting an immense pressure on the very fragile deal that is in place. But there's no question that this ceasefire is so fragile and that an exchange of kinetic action in days to come could further fracture the ceasefire and potentially break it completely.
And the way that the president is talking about it could also have.
Here's a question. If a lot of Americans use your balaclava for protests and such, would it be okay with you? I'm assuming yes, but I'm worried you could be targeted if your balaclava rises as the staple icon of the movement towards just an equal government and people. That would be sick as fuck. If I saw my balaclava in protest, that would be sick as fuck. As long as you're not doing reactionary bullshit, God bless. And I hold no responsibility over what somebody does while wearing a piece of clothing that I produce. So yeah, right. All my balaclavas are too warm. I agree. Look at balaclavas. So yeah, I will make sure I make balaclavas that are exceptionally breathable. What got you into them? Well, I needed to stream while being anonymous. So I could either become a VTuber, which was not my thing and is not my thing, I guess. Or I could wear a mask. And this was the option I went with. What if one of your balaclavas is worn by someone in a world record breaking gangbang? That would be sick, but then people would just think that's me. When the balaclavas are made, can you send one to Wal Mao and let him know I got literal masks made? Notice that it took less time than editing one video. That's a great idea. I will fucking do that. I will definitely do that. Thank you very much.
Of course, yesterday, while we were on the air, Iranian state media released what they say were, some of the points on the memo being discussed right now. And that said, the Strait of Hormuz would be open and under joint control with Iran and Oman. The nation here, actually, this is part of Oman right there. The tip there, which you can see with Iran there, really borders the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, Iran really loves fucking with loves fucking the world with the tip of Hormuz.
The president didn't seem to like the idea that Oman would be involved in any kind of partnership with Iran controlling the strait. Listen to what he said.
Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, so we'll have to blow them up.
Or we'll have to blow him up. Now, that may have just been a joke. It may have just been an aside.
Just threatening an entire sovereign country, like the terrorists that you are.
Sabrina, but a statement like that, how is that received in the region?
I mean, that was a shocking statement. We're certainly used to shocking statements from this president, but to attack one of our, strongest allies in the region, I think we've had an agreement with Oman since 1833. I mean, this is one of our longest standing allies that has been critical, not just for our defensive purposes in the region, but also just with diplomatic ties and getting towards this.
This entire war is an affront to every single American ally, be it those in Europe and Asia that are suffering immensely economically because of what the Americans have done, or the Middle Eastern American partners, which have now realized that there is a very, very great cost, both financial and military cost, to hosting American bases or being on the side of the United States of America when fighting any conflict or during peacetime. Because Americans will not consult with you when they start a war that might potentially militarily endanger you. They will not consult with you when they start a war that will potentially economically devastate you. And they will not give a flying fucking shit about what you have to say once they have started the war. They will fight against whatever they perceive their enemy is. To the less Saudi, to the less Emirati, to the less Oman citizen or Qatari or Ukrainian or German or Francophonian or whatever Japanese motherfucker you want to think of. That is your relationship with a decaying empire. It is no longer a choice. It is no longer a question of honor on whether the Americans will actually consult with you before they do unspeakable acts of imperialism. They can no longer afford to consult with you. A decaying empire has too many fronts to fight on. And the only way you can save yourself from the blowback effect of 100 years of American domination is to leave that fucking ship and rebrand yourself as fast as humanly possible. And that is what a lot of countries in the Middle East and in the European Union will do. The only thing that is going to be interesting to look at is who the ride or die American patriots of Italy, France, Germany, Saudi Arabia, or the United Arab Emirates are going to be. Who's going to go down with the burger ship. That shit's going to be very fun to look at.
Ceasefire. It's countries like Oman, Qatar, UAE, Saudi that have really urged the United States to take this ceasefire agreement. So insulting our allies like that, threatening to blow them up, doesn't help with our diplomatic ties.
Why does she kind of look like Denims? Maybe they're similar ethnicity or something. The fuck? I mean, she doesn't look like Denims, but she kind of does look like Denims. That is crazy. That's crazy. She does, dude. That's crazy. The hair and eyes. They have similar eyes, I think. I don't fucking know. What are Denims' eyes like? Denims twitch. Jesus, this is weird. Denims. Oh no, why are you crying everywhere, Denims? Why is every photo of her crying? Denim. Yeah, similar eyes. Yeah, similar eyes. Denim says a more bisexual face. Is this a straight face? I've educated you down the path of woke skull measuring for so long. It was a matter of time before you outdo me. Okay, and being like this TV presenter seems to have the same phrenology as my favorite streamer. Shout out to Denims. Mods, can we do a shout out to Denims?
And frankly, creates a lot of uncertainty in the region. See countries like Oman say, okay, the United States is no longer a reliable ally. I'm going to cut a deal with Iran because at the end of the day, my economy is being impacted. My military is being impacted. We just cannot sustain this war. And so you might see some countries want to just get the Strait open. Obviously, this is not what the administration wants. I hope that's not what the president intended. And I think what you're seeing from the president saying is it's not acceptable for either Iran or Oman to control that strait because they want to go back to the status quo before the war, where there was a free flow of commerce through the strait and freedom of navigation was allowed.
Seeing as we've been talking about this fragile ceasefire, they call all of the actions defensive actions, not offensive actions, and saying that the ceasefire has been holding. But now seeing this from CENTCOM this morning, an egregious ceasefire violation. How in question do you think this is?
Well, first of all, when the United States does these strikes, they're defensive because they see something that's massing that might turn into an attack on American forces, but is a threat. But when the Iranians respond, it's a ceasefire violation. And of course, the exact
Wow, based CNN, they called it the Communist News Network. Holy Mother of God, is this man going to be hung soon? The liberal mujahideen have awoken, and they will kill every single Republican.
So what do we have here? First of all, we have something of a stalemate, which is kind
Oh my God, is it really, dude?
of where the Iranians wanted this to go.
Because in a stalemate which economically devastates your opponent, a stalemate which economically devastates your opponent is not really a stalemate. It is simply the pushing of the front away from battling it out with physical force and your military units over to battling it out on the economic battlefield. Andrew Sanzu Tate, 1972.
Get
be
the
a-
president,
yeah, to be
right?
in the first
Because the
place.
president is not doing enough strikes back on Iran to make a difference. And as we've discussed before, even 38 days of bombing didn't bring about what he wanted. He's trying to get this
Race to the bottom, yes. We've talked about this so many times. I feel like it would be a waste of time for me to repeat myself. The battle between how many dead babies Iran can tolerate and how many expensive chicken wings the Americans can tolerate. The filth of unipolarity is that there is no consequence but simple, let's be honest, lack of convenience for one side when war is initiated and the literal death of thousands for the other side when war is initiated.